Okay, good morning, everyone. It is now 10:05, actually 10:06. Why don't we get started? My name is Michael Erickson. I'm the Regional Director for Manufacturing San Jose. Thank you all for joining us this morning. In case you joined after I mentioned it, we will be recording this event and we'll be able to share it with all attendees next week. So good morning and welcome to the Silicon Valley Manufacturing Roundtable, the second virtual roundtable since the pandemic began. My name is Michael Erickson, as I mentioned, Regional Director of Manufacturing San Jose, and your host for this morning's event. We are now over a year into the pandemic, and it's hard to believe. And we've witnessed tremendous change here in the Bay Area. We have watched as some companies thrived in this environment while others haven't. Manufacturing San Jose and our partner to the north, SVMR, have continued to focus on staying ahead of the waves of new information and change so that we can ensure that manufacturers are armed with the resources necessary to weather these difficult times. We have continued connecting manufacturers to access to necessary capital. For example, the companies that we've been engaged with in San Jose have attained over $11 million in relief capital through programs like the PPP and EIDL and local grants. We've been advising on how manufacturers can best ensure that they are operating with the health and safety of their employees and complying with county and state health ordinances. And we've been helping them negotiate with their property managers to allow them to continue operating while their revenues are only a fraction of what they were prior to the pandemic. We can see some semblance of light at the end of this tunnel, and Manufacturing San Jose and SVMR will continue to help local manufacturers weather this environment and ultimately grow their businesses. Before we get started into today's panel, just one quick housekeeping note. Tomorrow, our aforementioned partner to the north, SVMR, in celebration of Women's History Month, is hosting Boss Ladies in Manufacturing. They will be joined by the Boss Ladies at Timbuktu, 4 Point Beer, A-Plat, and Tinkering Monkey. And you can learn how they've developed their business and adapted during the pandemic. It is a paid event. It's $10 and it's a virtual event, of course. If you need more information, I can actually, right before the end of this event, share the link to sign up for it. And I should also mention that this event is sponsored by Bank of the West. Thank you, Bank of the West. So I'd like to first sort of explain why we're talking about this, and it's my pleasure to introduce the panel members to you as well this morning. So a couple of quick statements, sort of a preamble into this, is when Manufacturing San Jose launched in April of 2018, forgot to mention, we're marching very quickly to our 3-year anniversary. The prevailing theme that has come out of the conversations with all the manufacturers we're engaged with was that they all told us that they were struggling to find a talent pool to be able to hire from, especially for those positions that were slightly higher than entry level or mid-level and required a specific skill set that just wasn't available. So we began to do a number of things, starting with in January of 2019, we launched our job board. And we've been continuing to develop and expand programs that brought visibility to these career pathways for students and for people who have been either in between careers or have needed to overcome previous barriers to employment. So fast forward to recently, we every year survey the manufacturers we're engaged with to see and kind of take a snapshot of where they are now, what their biggest needs are. And almost unsurprisingly, more than half of those who responded in this most recent survey, which was done in the beginning of this year, all said that they were still, one of their biggest issues was hiring, training, and retaining employees. And so take that information and add to the fact that somehow in the course of the recent conversations that I've had with people here in San Jose, in San Francisco, and in Fremont, there are things actually happening that are working to address this issue, and things that have been moving along quite well. So this isn't. This has been a conversation that's been brought up quite often over the last few years, and I thought it was really a great idea to highlight the things that are actually happening on the ground to start to move the needle in this direction. So with all of that said, it's my pleasure to introduce Sarayah Rogers from HumanMade up north. Soraya is the co-founder of HumanMade. Tina Kapoor, the economic development manager for the City of Fremont. Matt Pawluk, who's the director of operations at Evolve Manufacturing in Fremont. And Matt Howell, who is the training manager at Vander-Bend Manufacturing here in San Jose. So welcome all of you to the panel.
Thanks, Michael. Excited to be here.
Yeah, of course. Soraya and Matt, can you unmute yourselves so I know that you're able to speak?
Absolutely.
Thanks. So I think I'd like to sort of throw out the first question to all of you. So tell everyone about yourselves and how you got to be where you are. Let's start with Matt.
And the one thing is there's two Matts, so you got to be more.
Good point. So Matt Pawluk, let's start with you.
All right, thanks, Michael. No, I'm glad to be here. It's nice to see everybody. So how I came to be here is through Evolve. Evolve is a contract manufacturer in Fremont, and this last year has impacted us in profound ways, just like with everybody else. So I'm excited to be here today. My background has always been manufacturing of and design of medical devices. And that you can see this is Evolve behind me. This is a real video live feed. I think part of why I'm here though is to tell the story of what we've gone over for the past year as we've pivoted through the pandemic and how we've partnered with different agencies, including the City of Fremont, to make sure we have talent through all this, because we're fortunate enough to be in a position where when the pandemic hit, we were called on very early to manufacture COVID testing kits, antibody testers, and ventilators, and we're still doing all of that. I believe that's why I'm here, is to share that perspective.
Yes, thanks, Matt. Tina.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Tina Kapoor, Economic Development Manager for the City of Fremont. And I just, I'm here to talk about the Earn and Learn Fremont, which we also call ELF. And I just want to say the pilot was spurred by the tremendous need that was presented by COVID, but it's also part of a bigger picture in Fremont. We're currently designing our economic recovery strategy, and workforce development continues to be a crucial part of that framework. So we have spent time in workforce development. I have work and experience in the past, but the need has just accelerated in the last year. So we know some of the gaps that exist in advanced manufacturing, skills gap, awareness gap, not only on the job seeker side, but also on the employer side, because workforce development can be this nebulous concept for businesses, right? So either they don't know about it or don't know what to do with it sometimes. And then last year we saw yet another gap emerge, right? The sector gap, as Michael mentioned. the impact on COVID on the hospitality, service, retail sector. And knowing the demographics of this sector, we understand that those that are most affected are, women, minorities, low-income individuals. And at the same time, the manufacturing sector has time and time again proven to be recession and now pandemic proof, continuing to add jobs. So that was the biggest opportunity that we see. COVID definitely is a call to action for all of us, and this is where we are, and I'll be talking more about the program as we go.
Matt Howell.
Hello, everybody. My name is Matt Howell. I'll take the moniker of the second Matt. I'll defer to Matthew Pawluk. I'm a bit of a transplant into manufacturing. I'm an educator by trade. I taught K through 12, every grade and subject for 10 years, and then I entered the manufacturing environment. I think I was in, hearing everybody speak, I can see why I was invited here. I was hired by Vander-Bend as a very unique hire. I was tasked with developing training programs so that we could grow our talent in-house and develop the skills we need in-house. So I work in human resources, so I'm definitely involved with the hiring and firing and all that good stuff. But my main focus is as training manager, and we've developed training programs for CNC machinists, brake press operator. We're currently developing one for welder and an inspector. And so what those programs do is take somebody who's completely green behind the ears and just wants to learn, or wet behind the ears, not green behind the ears. And give them the skills in-house. I teach them classes. And of course, I don't know how to weld and operate a CNC machine and all that good stuff. And so I work shoulder to shoulder with the guys and girls who do. And they teach them out on the shop floor concurrently while I teach them in the classroom.
Thanks, Matt. And then last but not least, Sarayah.
Hi, my name is Sarayah Rogers. I'm the co-founder and director of business development for HumanMade, a nonprofit community-based manufacturing, prototyping, and training facility located in the heart of the design district in San Francisco. About a 13,500 square foot shop with a full wood shop, metal shop, laser cutting, 3D printing, industrial sewing, kind of any tool you need to make anything. And while we're open to the public, our main programs are around workforce development and inclusion in the manufacturing sector. In 2019, we partnered with SVMR and the City of San Francisco to launch the city's very first manufacturing-related workforce development program, aimed for helping low-income residents gain the skills they need to enter into the manufacturing sector in entry-level positions. I think that's where I'm coming in on this one.
Yes.
We're coming up on finishing our 6th class and starting our 7th in 3 weeks. So super excited to share more about it.
That's awesome. So I think to some extent, some of you already sort of mentioned this in your introductions, but I want to start with Matt Howell. Can you talk about, so early on I had mentioned that, these were things, and you and I have discussed that these are, this was a topic that has been long discussed and that there wasn't a lot of movement on it. Can you talk about, and I think the reason why I brought you all on is, so, Tina and Matt P have, taken one approach. Sarayah and SVMR have taken another approach. But Vander-Bend in particular has decided to, and relatively early on, decided to kind of take this on your own. Can you talk about, what the sort of motivation was behind it, and, what you, how you, because it's expanding beyond just one piece of this. So talk about like what the sort of game plan was to expand it to the point where it has and beyond.
Sure. I think Necessity is the mother of invention is the perfect saying for what Vander-Bend did. Vander-Bend had plenty of customers knocking down the door and just money sitting on the table, and they needed workers now to make those products and take advantage of that opportunity. And so I think the Vander-Bend leadership had gone to numerous panels like this and numerous events, and you know, they were really looking for somebody to kind of ride in on a white steed or something and solve their issues, or find another institution or organization that they could kind of just directly get candidates from on a routine basis. And they found that. I mean, I'm not trying to disparage the whole you know, movement at all, by no means, but they just did never find that constant routine source of talent that they needed. And then likewise, I think another big issue of this is the talent, you know, especially working in HR, the talent actually is out there in some ways. And I think in manufacturing, especially through my experiences, people don't have the vocabulary and the soft skills to express the talent they have. I can't tell you how many times I've sat in an interview with, you know, a non-native English speaker, you know, from Vietnam or from Mexico or wherever. And, you know, listening to them in the interview, you think they have zero manufacturing skills. But then you take them out on the shop floor and wow, they can operate a really, you know, impressive lathe or whatever, with unbelievable experience and dexterity. And so a big part of our training program, and this is kind of a double-edged sword. But when we started the program, we were worried about this. We are equipping these people with soft skills, and they do. Some of them have, and they continue to do. They go other places and command larger wages, but that's okay. You know, but I think that's a big challenge of the community at large, especially the education community, is getting the manufacturing vocabulary out there, and getting people to be able to put on resumes and go in interviews and express what they know, because in a lot of ways the talent is out there.
Thanks, Matt. Sarayah, can you talk about what the sort of genesis of the program? So just to backtrack a little bit, and correct me if I'm wrong, but HumanMade's initial mission wasn't necessarily tied to workforce development in the beginning. How has that changed and, you know, led to the effort that you're doing up north?
Absolutely. I think our background for both myself and Ryan, when we came into it previously with Tech Shop, and I'm sure you had a lot of the same examples, is you would see people come in and take a 2 to 3 hour training session that they'd normally see in a makerspace, and then through their own volition be able to learn new skills and really kind of master and conquer the technology. And so when we were creating HumanMade, we really wanted to make sure that that was available to anyone, especially people who are historically underserved in the manufacturing sector. And so when we were launching, the RFP for OEWD came out wanting to launch the very first manufacturing sector workforce development program, which we saw in partnership with SVMR, which is a perfect opportunity for us to combine our technical skills training with this kind of more manufacturing career-based training. I do second what Matt says. A lot of our work, we do about 250 hours of hands-on technical training in both CNC machining and additive manufacturing, computer-aided design. But we also do about 50 hours of job readiness soft skills training, working on barrier mitigation assessment and workplace etiquette.
And so Matt, and before actually I introduce Matt and Tina, thank you for your answer, Sarayah. And this is almost the perfect segue. I would like to acknowledge one of our attendees in particular. The mayor of Fremont, Lily May, has joined us this morning. Thank you, Lily, for joining us. And if you'd like, at the end of the panel, this is a great moment too for Tina to shine in front of the elected in Fremont. And so Tina and Matt, I think it's just perfect to talk about the program that launched somewhat to my surprise in March. I thought it was launching later, and I apologize for mixing my calendar up. But talk about the program in Fremont, and especially around what the ultimate, what led you to get to where you are today, and beyond.
I'll start, and then we'll tag team because Matt was very much part of this conversation.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned in my introduction, right, we know some of the workforce development gaps traditionally, and then coming through COVID and kind of seeing this humongous opportunity right in front of us. I working with key economic development partners, I reached out to some of them that I've had historically very good working relationships with, right? Like the two boards, San Jose's Work to Future, Alameda County Workforce Development Board. Those folks are really great conduits for us to not only reach out to the target population that we're talking about, right? That's most adversely affected by the pandemic, but also, tapping into the federal funding streams to help us launch the pilot. And then, of course, Ohlone College, because the program is Earn and Learn. And, Matt and I will talk about why the learn is so important in this. So Ohlone College has this new smart manufacturing technology program. So, it's actually a really cool program because it is made up of modules that you can kind of plug and play model almost. And so some of the training tracks are coming from that program. And of course, Evolve Manufacturing and Fremont's own Family Resource Center. So we wanted to bring a whole package of kind of wraparound services. And I will say, before I punt over to Matt, we couldn't have asked for a better employer partner than Evolve Manufacturing. They have a great track record of supporting internships, through Ohlone College and retaining some of them full-time beyond the internship. So together, we just kind of came up with this shared vision of introducing displaced workers to better paying careers that will lead to economic self-sufficiency with a short 8-week paid programming. And studies have shown that how incredibly difficult it can be to come in cold into a new career pathway without skills, but manufacturing is probably the best career you could switch to. Does not require any prior experience or training. But with this Earn and Learn, we're not only giving them work experience, but also the training. So they definitely get a leg up. And then with that, I'll see if Matt, you have anything to add.
No, thank you, Tina. It was perfect for us. I can say as the partner employer, Evolve went through two main surges with hiring since the pandemic. One early on into the summer, where we hired close to 80 people helping us build COVID testing kits. And we found at that time it was hard to find people. Even though we saw in the news all these people being laid off, all the service and hospitality areas being decimated, it was hard to find them. And then it was even harder to convince them that manufacturing jobs are way better than what you're used to. A lot of people, I think, and what we're fighting against is the stigma against manufacturing, where they're used to a greasy area that's, dirty floors and everything. Again, this is the environment we work in, and we have clean rooms that are cleaner than this. And so when we were working with the City of Fremont and Tina and her group, we realized that there's a lot of potential for helping people. This whole program is not to benefit the City of Fremont or Evolve directly, or any of the future manufacturers that do this. This really is a both short and long-term strategy just to help the industry in general by helping individuals that actually need it. And so we've had people that they were, and like we've heard already, they had no experience. When we recruited, we actually told people, we expect you to have no experience. If you have experience, great. If you don't, that's what we expect. And so it's this amazingly unique opportunity, because getting into a new career is never easy. It's always, do you have experience? No, well, then you can't have the job. It's that loop. This cuts through the loop of experience. So you have now on your resume working at Evolve Manufacturing. But more than that, we train you just as a medical device company to make sure you're compliant with the FDA. So there's some base training we give you on the job, plus how to do documentation, all that other stuff. But more than that, we're giving them a leg up that this learn portion, these classes are tailor-made for us, well, for the participants. It's how to read spec documents. It's about ergonomics. It's about additive manufacturing, Industry 4.0. Things that our team here our team that already were employed here want to sit in on these classes because we're sure that we could learn something from them. So now that we have people that were in industries that were prone to disaster, moving into an industry that is recession proof almost. In some cases, we're paying them more than they were getting paid before. They got this on their resume forever, plus they get college credits if they want it, and they get a certificate at the end. There's no downside. And again, we're doing a pilot, and there were some ups and downs, and we worked through them, nothing insurmountable, but the idea that all these other people in the Bay Area, especially just in Fremont, can take advantage of this program now that our pilot it's in the swing of things, is really going to help everybody. We're going to have better educated workforce that'll always be there to help, especially when we have a gap in skill and labor. So we already have partners that are excited to do it next. We're just happy to be the pilot program.
That's awesome. And just staying on TNMF for a second. So the program launched March 8th. So you're 3 weeks in. And, you know, as we mentioned, you know, a lot of these participants had no concept of what manufacturing was going into it. How, when recruiting participants for the program, how are you able to overcome some of the misperceptions around what manufacturing is?
So we held multiple recruitment sessions, and it was always supported by all the different boards that were enabling this program to exist. It was great. It was easy for me. I had to show up and talk, and they handled the rest. I think there's two parts. I can talk to one part, which is the kind of the call to action. But I know Tina can talk about all the support and the wraparound services. The call to action was very clear for us, though. I can't imagine being in a job where you quarantined for this whole time, or even number of months. We never shut down. I had 1 day off in the last year. I probably need a vacation, but it's exciting to be on the front lines. And so what we did is we showed pictures of what it looks like. And it wasn't a, please come help us. It was I'm challenging you to come and be a part of this. We are every day making a difference and fighting on the front lines here at Evolve against COVID. I mean, what better place, what better purpose is there to help out society by building COVID testing kits? So, you know, we've made over 2 million now at Evolve. We're probably higher than that since last I counted. Another part of it too was alleviating fears. We have, there's a HEPA filter whirring right next to me. So everyone has masks, we have PPE. We're able to sign people up to enable them to get vaccinated. There's added benefits and protections for employees too, but really it was come and work with me at Evolve in the Earn and Learn Fremont program, make a difference, plus all these other benefits you're going to get, but come here and actively take charge and make a frontline stand against this pandemic. And again, wraparound services.
Yeah, I do want to say, you know, the company culture and Matt's being really humble, but I do want to say that that's really important, right? So when Matt's talking to these potential future participants of the cohort, you know, they're also kind of gauging and judging the company, the culture and what they're getting into, right? So we know, and Matt was really good about communicating that during these recruitment events, that look, you can come in without any experience, you know, we'll give you the experience, we're giving you the training, customized training with this program, but the employer here, you know, is really interested and invested in the growth of these individuals, right? You bring the drive, you bring the hustle, and we'll give you the rest to succeed. And I do want to touch upon the importance of different partners that we brought to the table. I see Lawrence is here, so I want to give shout out to Work to Future, of course, and then also the Alameda County Board, but and also the City of Fremont's the Family Resource Center, right? So together, these entities are able to bring in the real important kind of the career counseling, the case management services, you know, through our FRC, the Family Resource Center, we're able to even provide like help with transportation or childcare. Of course, pandemic has its difficulties, but these things are really important to the people that we are trying to bring into this program. So having that was just absolute must, and I'm really thankful for all these partners to to have come together so quickly. I mean, COVID was a really big challenge overlay for this, right? But to have something kind of launched quickly has been really amazing.
Yeah. What's interesting about, and I think I alluded to this earlier, but what's interesting about all four of you is, and all three programs, I should say, is each of you have taken a different tack. And we're, Tina and Matt, in your case, there are there's what, 4 or 5 plus partners in this program, and you've all been able to gather together and combine resources and make it work. With Matt, Vander-Bend, as we talked about, has decided to tackle this internally and develop their teams. Sarayah, in the case of HumanMade, you started with more partners than you currently have. Can you talk about what that process has been like and how you've been able to sort of ultimately streamline service delivery over the existence of this program?
Yeah, absolutely. I think like probably everyone else's programs, as you start a pilot, you learn things really, really quickly. So initially when we started out, we had an additional community partner that would be providing soft skills and client support services. However, they were kind of an off-site partner. And what we really learned was first, they didn't come from a manufacturing background. And so really getting to explain to new participants what manufacturing is. We kind of run into the same thing where people think of like 1950s Ford, greasy manufacturing environments. And so we bring people into HumanMade and walk them around and really make sure they understood, like, this is what a mill is, this is what a lathe is, these are 3D printers, this is kind of what you can learn. And so kind of pulling in that outreach, which we now have over 85 community partners in San Francisco that we do outreach with, including Goodwill, as well as OEWD and HSA sends it out to all of their people on their mailing list, so that we're making sure that we're kind of hitting those communities that we want to engage with, who could most benefit from the program. And then additionally, we brought on our own client support specialist because we're working with at-risk communities who have impossible barriers a lot of the times. Having someone here on site who can provide resource referral, help them sign up for benefits, set SMART goals and individual employment plans, we found has been really, really successful as we've moved forward.
Yeah, and just staying on you, Sarayah, and going back to the question that I had posed to Tina and Matt. So do you have a sense of, of the participants that have gone through the program over the last couple of years, how many were or had previous experience in manufacturing, and do you have a sense of sort of what their perceptions about manufacturing were prior to joining the program?
Absolutely. I think we might have had maybe 5%. We've had about 90, 95 people come through in the last 2 years. Of our programs, maybe 5% would know kind of what manufacturing really is. I'd say almost no one, barely anyone came in really understanding the software or like what our manufacturing environment was.
Yeah. Thank you. So Matt Howell, So with the training programs that have been developed at Vander-Bend, they're, obviously set to tackle very specific needs. How are you guys able to determine sort of what the first sort of program looked like, and then how have you adapted that and grown that over time?
Sure. The first program we started was CNC machinist and inspectors concurrently. And I have to give a shout out to Tooling U, SME. They're a content provider. And from my understanding, their offices in Cleveland just look like a lot of guys like me working shoulder to shoulder with people who know manufacturing. And so the manufacturers are working with educators to create this online course content that I use to train the trainees. And then I just worked shoulder to shoulder with the guys and girls who already know how to do it, already know how to weld, already know how to CNC machine. And we went through Tooling U and then NIMS, the National Institute of Metalworking Standards. They also have, this kind of goes back to my educational background. You got to have standards in education, otherwise you're a meandering ship. And so we use the NIM standards, and then I just went over with them one by one with the guys and girls who know what they're doing, and asked them, hey, is this something we do? Is this something that's critical to what we need workers to be able to perform? If they said yes, voila, it's in the training program. If they said no, then voila, it's not in the training program. So a very practical setup, and I think it's technology. I've been at Vander-Bend now for 4 years, and technology just continues to accelerate. And I just think all manufacturers and the education system as well really need to get flexible and really need to have systems in place to really specify what people are learning on these specific machines. And how do you go from 3 axes to 5 axes? How do you jump from MIG welding to TIG welding? It's really, all it's doing is getting more and more esoteric, not even to mention robotic brake presses, robotic machinery. And so just having those systems in place to jump from new technology to new technology and train them specifically on them, I think is going to be critical. And we're trying to do it at Vander-Bend.
Yeah, and just staying with you, Matt. So with the other programs, they're drawing in participants from outside of, traditional manufacturing or from other career pathways, and, bringing them into launching career pathways in manufacturing. For Vander-Bend, you're pulling from existing employees. How do you ultimately determine who goes through those training programs that you've established?
We have a rubric that's based on their current. We get a lot of people from shipping jobs, packaging jobs, receiving jobs that they walk by these kind of back to what the other participants are saying. They walk by these CNC machines and these technologies, and they realize, well, wow, their eyes open up. Wow, manufacturing isn't dirty, and that is cool, and it does interest you to be able to interact with a computer screen, a touch screen, and manipulate a robot and so forth. And so they'll just walk into HR from their shipping job or their receiving job and say, hey, I want to learn how to CNC machine. I want, I've heard we got a program like that. And so then we'll put them through an internal process where we'll get feedback from their current supervisor. What's their attendance like? What's their attitude like? What's their ability to learn like? And then we'll go through their resume and everything. And then, if it's a good fit, we'll go on from there. Oh yeah, there you go, Michael. There's one of my cats walking in. I warned you about that. But yeah, and if they go through that internal process and they seem like a good candidate that's already demonstrated good job skills, then yeah, we're good to go.
Okay.
Let me get to my cat. Yeah.
That's fine. And for Matt, Howell, or I'm sorry, Matt Pawluk. Too many Matts. I'm starting to sound like my mother. So for Evolve, how do you see this program, filling the skills gap within your company specifically? It's, do you feel like this will address the need in the short term, or is this more of a longer process?
Yeah, good question. It's both, and it's more than just Evolve too. I mean, I can't talk enough about Ohlone College and how supportive they've been in providing resources for us. We had 2 amazing interns from their program, the Smart Manufacturing program last summer, that came back on as apprentices. And they're back in school, they're doing their own thing, and we still have one-on-ones. I still have one-on-ones with them just as a mentor. They're awesome. We're looking forward to getting more people soon. And so for this program too, it's definitely more than just Evolve. I know I saw in there Brian Paper, who runs Bay Area Circuits. He's on the call today. He has the same experiences with Ohlone College. And so yes, short term, we definitely had a need. We needed 50 people to come on and build our COVID testing kits. But with zero experience, we've already seen here at Evolve that some of these people have stepped up, that they got the hustle that they brought from. For example, we had one lady that was a waitress for 20 years, and the hustle that she had and the work ethic that she had translated perfectly. She had no idea how to do documentation that's compliant to the FDA, but we know how to teach that. That's easy for us. It's much harder to teach work ethic and that, again, hustle. And so there's some people that we've already had, Charlene, John, Maria, Oscar, Bruce, all these people that zero experience in the past, they're already in leadership positions in our production line. So they already have a team working for them because they had it. They had the drive, that hunger for more. They had the people smarts we always look for, and the culture thing is vastly important. Humility, that they knew that everyone makes mistakes. We're all human. Robots aside, there's still humans working the robots. People are going to mess up. It's how you deal with those mess ups that really is important. So through the Earn and Learn Fremont program, it's an 8-week stint of work with 6 weeks of classes, all here at Evolve on site. And then the Ohlone part is virtual, call-in. We've already had some people that were early kind of pre-stage people for this pilot, and we already hired them full time. So we're going to be offering jobs, we already know, to some of these people once the 8 weeks is up. But even if people don't get job opportunities, again, it's more than just at Evolve. They can take that certificate and that resume boost to any of the 900 manufacturers just in Fremont alone. So for us, short and long term, this thing has been great. I can't stress culture enough, though. That's been our big success, and it's deliberate. So I don't want to get sidetracked too much, but if we have time, ask me questions about culture later on. I'll talk for a while.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think with all the programs that we've talked about, the goals are ultimately the same. I think developing folks to have the skills to build career pathways and viable careers. We're not necessarily talking about minimum wage jobs. These are higher paying jobs that have other opportunities down the road for further advancement. And it's ultimately a case of, as I had talked to all of you about prior to this, it's the willingness to work, the willingness to learn. One thing I would love to do maybe a year from now is sort of continue this discussion, but have it highlight the participants that have gone through these programs and talk about, a lot of what we just discussed. Starting with Matt Howell, what do you see as the future, long or short term and long term of your training programs at Vander-Bend?
hopefully they'll be part, back to the other Matt. Hopefully, I think we've done a good job of making them part of the Vander-Bend culture, part of the Vander-Bend mission. And I think it's just a reality of all manufacturers in America, especially. You're going to have to develop your own talent. And kind of what we were talking about before this meeting, coming from an educational background, I can tell you why you have your problem. It's very easy. We don't train kids to be manufacturer workers. We don't, it's all intellectual knowledge taught in schools. We don't develop physical skills, only in the sports, and even the arts are poo-pooed on and pushed aside. And we know that manufacturing demands a lot of physical intelligence to be able to operate machines, see three-dimensionally, position things the way they need to be positioned. And so, yeah, I think at Vander-Bend, if you speak to us a year from today, I hope to say that our weld training program has been fully developed and is up and running, and we're working on our 5th and 6th training program. And that we've hired, we continue to hire people internally and externally and put them through the program. And they started at $16, $17 an hour, and they're now making 23 and 25. We've already had that. And I hope to say, I hope to come back in a year and say it's continued. And we're just developing the next program.
That's awesome. For Soraya, I'll pose the same question to you. Your program has been going on for a while. You've seen quite a few participants come through. What do you see as the next phase in the program? Do you see it continuing along the same lines because of the success that you've had? Or ultimately, how do you see it adapting in the future?
Yes to everything. Yeah, I think one of the key things that we teach in our class is not only the skills that you're learning in this 12-week program, but it's how to be a lifelong learner. Technology is going to keep evolving and changing, and just like our participants are going to have to continue their education after they leave here, we have to continue to develop and redevelop our curriculum to make sure we're keeping up with new manufacturing processes and the new technologies that are coming out. So I think in a year from now, we'll see potentially a curriculum that is completely different or has more things than what we originally started with. I think additionally, we'll hope to engage with more communities. These last 3 cohorts, we've been able to start bringing in participants from Oakland and hoping just making sure that we can reach more and more people.
Yeah, that's great. Do you see any other, beyond, CAD CAM, 3D printing, and machining, do you see any other avenues of development in the future?
Absolutely. I think one thing that we've recently been able to do is partner with Autodesk to offer our program participants all new certifications. And so our morning class is working on a 2.5 axis milling program certification through Autodesk, and the evening class works through a CAD for mechanical design certification. So I think as the industry develops new kind of certificates, new kind of processes, we'll eventually have to start to do training to be very specific on what manufacturers really need to hire for their workforce.
Yeah, the great thing too, not to promote Autodesk, over any others or anything, but having partnerships like that, and I think even with the colleges as well, and through certification programs like MIMS, these are a variety of ways to help all of you try to stay ahead of the curve as much as possible on the technological side, because that's one of the challenges of developing any training program, is figuring out exactly what not the skills of today, but the skills of 3 to 5 beyond years from now. So having those partnerships is one sort of added benefit to that. And so for Tina and Matt P, I will pose the same question to you. And I realize that you're in the pilot. But what do you see as sort of the next steps over the next year and beyond for your program?
Yeah, great question. And obviously, this is something we're thinking a lot about too. As I mentioned earlier, right, the pilot was really spurred on by this pandemic, right? We saw the gaps, and this was a way for us to bridge the gaps and help those that need most help right now. So we were able to build this in a very short amount of time, right? Focusing on COVID, of course, but the program holds promise even beyond COVID. And Matt alluded to that a little bit, right? There are 900 manufacturing companies in Fremont. There are more in San Jose. So I think, our regions definitely has that potential. It obviously takes time to build a model that works for, community colleges and federally funded workforce development programs for entities like the city's Family Resource Center, and in particular, the employers and the clients that we want to serve, right? So the key really is, or was for us to drive something that fits the needs of the workers, employers, and really meshes with the current models or the way that these other key players support these kinds of efforts. And I think we've accomplished that with this pilot, right? It's really needed. We now just need to get through the first cohort, right? There are definitely lessons learned that we can use. And so far, so good. We're hearing nothing but positive things. So that's encouraging. And I do, want to say that we will do everything we can to make sure the program continues. We're having some really good conversations right now. We don't see the city owning this, even though we played a key role in building the pilot. So as part of this evolves, we're talking to partners to see how not only someone can own this, but also scale it in the future. So that's what's going to truly make this a regional effort that not only serves Fremont, but can serve employers in all of our cities, right? And there is that flexibility built in for programming based on the customized training component of this program. So I would just end with saying, this really is a silver lining in these very difficult times. And I hope that the pilot can serve as a catalyst to build a more diverse talent pipeline for advanced manufacturing.
And Matt, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Oh, really? That was brilliant. I mean, that's the intent is I mean, there's been some ups and downs on this one at the very beginning.
Yeah.
We changed our recruiting model. We had bandwidth issues here when we put out, 18 different laptops to Zoom into Ohlone College. There's some people that have never done this before, so they didn't know, etiquette, like was mentioned earlier, and just workplace behavior. But none of the issues have been that big of an issue that we'd ever want to stop. It's worth it, and it's worth it for everybody involved, which to me is the Bay Area. Again, we've got partners that we work with all the time, all around us: Stereotech, Bay Circuits, Owens Design, Stephen Gould, all these guys that we chat with. We talk about this all the time. They can't wait. They're ready. They're just waiting for this pilot to get over so they can sign up, and it's awesome for me to see. So I mean, that's the long term is get this thing out there for everybody. I would love for this to make national news where everyone that needed a job in the Bay Area has one, and it's all in manufacturing. Wouldn't that be amazing? So that's the vision. Nothing too big, just ending unemployment.
Thanks. Well, thank you all again for being a part of this. You're all doing fantastic work, and I appreciate you all joining us this morning. I would like to turn it over to the attendees, and if you have any questions of the panel, I would just ask you to raise your hand, and then I'll go ahead and unmute you. Oh, okay. Dana, go ahead.
Hi, Michael. Hi, everyone. I have a lot of questions, but Soraya, can you operate in Santa Clara County?
I mean, that's definitely a possibility. I think one of the things that we're equipped with right now is our facility, but yeah, finding facilities, it definitely could be something to happen.
Can I follow up with you and talk about ways to collaborate in Santa Clara County?
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you.
Of course.
Carlos, go ahead.
Hi, yeah, this is Carlos Jones. I'm with the Santa Clara Employment Service as well. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Awesome. One of the questions is, as you know, with clients is background. In manufacturing, are you guys tend to be background friendly, or what's your take on, especially with the reentry program that's getting ready to start with a lot of people starting their lives over and with previous background? How do you guys handle that part of it?
Who wants to tackle that first?
I know that. Oh,
go ahead.
yeah, good. Go ahead, please. Please.
I know that we in the past have had a few people from the reentry population. Our program participants are extremely diverse. We have quite a few who are refugees, homeless, reentry, immigrants, dealing with all kinds of different things. One thing we really do, especially I think this is on our partners at SVMR, is they really work with manufacturing companies to make sure that they understand the people that they're hiring from, and that they understand what you're getting when you hire a participant or a graduate from our program. One thing that we provide after a year of graduation, we do supportive services for up to a year. So those employers kind of know going into it that if for some reason, we hope you never do, but it happens that you have maybe an issue or needs to address something with a program participant, that we're also an additional resource for you to go back to.
Thank you, Soraya.
Yeah, our program is pretty broad for its criteria for entry as well. I know we've got, it's only 20-25 people, so it's not a giant army of people, but I know we have one unhoused person. We had someone that is a vet. And no, we've been working with them. I mean, we had one guy that was bicycling here to work every day. And after a while, he was able to purchase a car, which is great. And so, no, we welcome it. And a lot of the jobs that we have, again, specific to here, we've actually encouraged people that are unable to walk, if there's any physical handicaps. You're sitting in a chair, if you can use your hands, that's about it. You can do almost everything.
Yeah, I would just add too, for the ELF, particularly the first cohort, we were targeting some of the, those participants that may have not just one, but multiple barriers to entry, because those are the people that, normally wouldn't go into these jobs. And this has been a concerted effort in connecting them with their barriers into these higher paying careers. And the workforce boards, again, have have those strengths to bring the career counseling and case management that go with it.
And I would just fourth everything the other three participants have said. Beggars can't be choosers. We are definitely background friendly. We are, and some people with not good backgrounds tend to be the most impressive individuals who turn their life around, and the most committed and thankful and grateful and hardworking for the opportunity we give them. So by all means, yes, we're looking for people like that.
Thank you, guys. Allison, go ahead with your question.
Thank you. Allison Greenlee with East Bay Economic Development Alliance. Amazing workforce and economic development programs. Kudos to everyone. To the panel, I wanted to ask, the idea that this is a solution that may not just address Evolve's challenge or a local challenge has already been discussed. What aspects of the partnerships in this program do you think could actually be scaled and replicated?
I mean, I can speak for Evolve, but Tina, you want to take it on to begin with?
Sure. Allison, and you are talking particularly about the ELF program and how that can be. Yeah, I think I quickly touched upon this, but I can elaborate. So the earn and learn, the combination is really important, and it is turning out to be that kind of one step above any work experience that may programs that may exist, only because the potential of us scaling, but also customizing based on the employer need, right? So in Evolve's case, because it's a medical device company, highly regulated, they may need very, very individual programs to be included in that training component. But because it's coming out of this broader smart manufacturing technology program, that has a lot of different tracks and pathways and modules that can be, you know, kind of pulled aside and create a program out of it. I think we see this as a great potential to serve a lot of different companies. All, you know, we're kind of lumping advanced manufacturing in this one bucket, but they all have individual needs, right? They do different work. This can be applicable to clean tech employers, because we're going to see this, you know, green jobs coming to our economy here. So we're definitely very encouraged and enthused by this pilot, and do see a lot of potential to be customized based on the employer needs.
We've had that in mind from the get-go. We knew this was a pilot. Again, this is not a, hey, Evolve gets to do this and nobody else does. We want to share this with everybody. That's the benefit to the whole valley. From the work side, I think it's very scalable. There's a little bit of a draw on resources in HR at the beginning, but nothing that's crazy. And there's a lot of great support from the boards that are helping. The learn part, it's all digital. So we set up a room upstairs where we have like a big kind of a cafeteria area, and we have a projector and we do Zoom. And I don't see why that one class couldn't go to multiple sites. So even if we have concurrent learn programs all through Ohlone, it wouldn't add anything to them. And it's easy for them. There's some handouts and some pins, but nothing crazy from a resource perspective either. To me, it's very scalable.
Good. Thank you.
The one thing that I failed to mention during the conversation earlier is, you know, for this pilot particularly, and because we know the cohort we're serving, the types of individuals coming into the program, we were also able to provide a laptop to each of the participant, so that technology needs don't become another hindrance for them to be able to participate. So, and that can be done for future cohorts too.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And we actually had to train them. I mean, that is one thing to know. The participants, some of them had never used Zoom. We had to show them how to do capital letters to enter into the keyboard. So when we talk about zero background or experience, we really mean it. And now they do. They have that experience.
Just had a moment of this like bliss, you know, trying to remember back to when I had no concept of what Zoom was.
Yeah. The good old days.
Yes, good. Annette, I'm just going to unmute or ask you to unmute, but go ahead with your question. Annette, are you there? Oh, Annette, if you'd like to type your question, I can ask it to the panel. Speaking of the bliss of pre-Zoom times.
Yep.
While we're waiting for Annette's question, does anyone else have any questions they'd like to ask the panel?
Well, I think Annette's question just came in.
Oh, yeah, there. Okay, so I guess this is for the entire panel. Is there any interest in partnering with a school district or high school? Thank you, Annette, for your question.
I can
Yes.
start.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead, Matt.
I would say yes. No, I think that's better. The earlier, the better. And Annette, you know, I saw some messages before. You know, 18 years would be a good starting point for the age, but no, just like Matt H was saying, we don't teach a lot of this stuff in schools. So any program that can do that, that gives that hand-on job shadowing, or even just a tour, which manufacturing day, make sure everyone goes to manufacturing day.
Yes.
Yep. Make sure everyone does that this year. It's still going to happen. It's always important. So that's my quick yes.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing too. We already are partnering with the school boards on multiple programs. As Matt mentioned, the manufacturing day, we are reaching out to younger audiences more and more, you know, starting from middle school and high school, really. So at the time when they're trying to think about careers and what they may want to go, like expose them early, right? And have multiple points of exposure. You're not going to change someone's mind by one event. And there are also in the city of Fremont, we have several partnerships with Tesla and other employers working with the Fremont Unified School District. So absolutely, they're a great partner.
And those manufacturing days, we usually ask if there's anyone interested in internships. So yeah, even offline, we just got an intern yesterday, even during the school internships. Now that people are virtual, it opens them up to do part-time internships during the school year.
Yeah. A couple of things I want to highlight is one, to Tina's point, you know, we have found that one exposure point is not enough, that, you know, there need to be multiple exposure points during the school year. And so the things that we're doing here in San Jose is one, the first thing we did was partner with Strive, the SVO's, you know, sort of workforce development program, and San Jose Works, who continues to be a partner and a fantastic partner at that, on their summer internship program. And during the pandemic, because of the sort of shifting realities of, you know, being able to host an intern online or in person or some hybrid version of that, you know, they've adapted so that we're now involved in, it's a year-long process so far. We've had a cohort in the summer, obviously, and then fall, and we're now in the middle of the spring cohort, and, you know, we look forward to the summer as well. And it's, I think, one of the key pieces, you know, I talk about early on manufacturers, you know, having to adapt and sort of conform to the new reality to be able to, you know, survive and become more resilient and grow when this is over. It's the workforce partners have really done a great job in doing the same and adapting to the new reality, and just making sure that just because we're not able to see each other in person, that the work doesn't stop. And so that's been really fantastic to be a part of. The other thing that we've been doing is, so we launched in November, we actually had our first inside manufacturing event here in San Jose, and that's presented high school students with an opportunity to meet someone who is either a CEO or a business driver of a manufacturer, and learn not only what they do, but what motivated them to start a career in manufacturing, or how that manufacturing career has led to a pathway to entrepreneurship over time. So that is, you know, coupled with Manufacturing Week, that's 3 exposure points right there that, you know, we can point to as helping overcome some of the perceptions or misperceptions around manufacturing that exist. There's still this vision of, you know, the cartoon factory and, you know, smokestacks and oil as being what manufacturing is. And Matt P, and, you know, we've talked about this process. You know, it's, when I think about manufacturers now, I think about, like, I can see your floor is so clean. How do you possibly do any work in that space? It just blows me away. And so it's incredible to watch. And so what I'd like to do before we close is I would like to invite Mayor Lily May from the City of Fremont to just say a few words and close us out. Hold on. There we go. Thank you.
Hi. So thank you so much for the opportunity to join all of you today. I look at it in terms of when you talk about workforce development, I think Matt has the word right behind him. I saw the word flexibility.
Yes.
And I think that that's really critical. For me, I came from a background working for a PC manufacturer and also for, I was a worldwide sales controller in sales operations. So it gives a little bit of that industry background. But then I also served on the school board and worked very closely with the ROP, which is here locally. But I want to thank our local manufacturers like Evolve, as well as our economic development team, because in pulling this together, I think you realize that it's really not an isolated issue. When I look at it from the city perspective, it's important for us to be able to help our manufacturers or companies here to not just move here to the city of Fremont, but to be able to be successful and thrive. And part of that is having that workforce of the future. Having served on the school board, and I'm also currently now the mayor's task force on education chair, I would love to get a white paper out when this is all done, or getting in front, because I have regular meetings with about 60 mayors throughout the nation. And so this would be a great way to scale up and to create more awareness. But it's not just this area. When I look at some of the areas that we're being asked to address as a city right now and throughout the nation, we're talking about residential housing needs assessments, about green technology, about updating our climate action plans and our parks and recreation. But to do that, we really need to have that flexibility in how we learn and how we earn our pay. And I am also a product of that. I have 2 MIF made in Fremont, and they're millennials. So I have a daughter who's an engineer and a son who's an industrial engineer. And so when I look at that, how do we make this relevant to students? Right now, we've been going through this phase right now. Instead of having in-person learning, we've had to now scale and change to this Zoom world where we live in the Brady Bunch boxes online. And how do we adapt that so that people can understand how the future looks for them? And we're really going through a revolutionary phase right now. And to provide that direction is critical for us. We need to work with our labor and trade. We need to work with our OP program. We need to work earlier on. We've had efforts in such as Introduce a Girl to Engineering Days. We have Mother-Daughter Science Days. And for us, I also work with AUW, I'm a member there. And we start that in first and second, first through 6th grade. So it's really early that we start. And locally, to make sure that it's accessible from the city's perspective, we didn't do it just at any city site in terms of a school site, but in terms of our libraries. We've put in makerspace there and Archimedes programs. We've tried to create challenges or things that allow our students to adapt. And from the perspective, it's not just the physical health that, thankfully, so many of our manufacturers are helping us to address in this COVID time period. It's the mental health of giving somebody hope and sense of direction. And it's also the fiscal health. As a city mayor, I'm looking at it from just the feasible part. For us to be able to provide these programs, we need to have the tax revenue. We need to keep people here hired, employed, and doing well, because that addresses crime, homelessness, and upskilling of so many of our workforce from vets to women. So thank you for this opportunity to share a little bit, and look forward to hearing more about all the wonderful successes. And I'm very inspired to hear about all the efforts and how everybody approaches it a little bit differently, but then that they're able to create unique solutions that help create the workforce that we need for the future.
Mary, thank you so much for joining us this morning. So what I would like to do is, before we close, I want to thank every attendee for joining us this morning. I would also very much like to thank Tina Kapoor, Matt Pawluk, Matt Howell, aka Matt number 2, which you will forever, even beyond this, be known as. And of course, last but not least, Sarayah Rogers for joining us this morning and I'm not only talking about the incredible work that needs to happen here, but actually doing it. I think it's nice to see. It's more than nice to see. It's just incredible to see the work that's being done, and I appreciate you all for what you're doing. Thank you all for joining us. The next roundtable will be announced shortly, but will take place this June, and hopefully maybe that one will be some hybrid where we'll have in-person attendees and Zoom. But thank you to Zoom for keeping us going. So thank you all, and we'll see you very soon.
Thank you, Michael.